The term, Cold War, refers to a geopolitical conflict that emerged after the end of World War II between the United States and its Western allies on one side, and the Soviet Union and its Eastern Bloc allies on the other. The conflict lasted from the late 1940s until the early 1990s and was characterized by intense political, economic, and military competition, as well as an arms race between the two superpowers. The Cold War was a unique kind of conflict, as it was not fought directly between the two sides. Instead, it was a war of ideology and influence, with each side trying to gain the upper hand through propaganda, espionage, and proxy wars. One of the defining features of the Cold War was the nuclear arms race, which was fueled by the development of nuclear weapons by both sides. The origins of the Cold War can be traced back to the end of World War II, when the United States and the Soviet Union emerged as the two dominant superpowers. The two sides had different ideologies, with the United States advocating for democracy and capitalism, while the Soviet Union promoted communism. The differences between the two sides were exacerbated by a series of events, including the Soviet Union's refusal to allow free elections in Eastern Europe and the United States' decision to drop atomic bombs on Japan. The Cold War was marked by a number of key events, including the Korean War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the Vietnam War. Each of these conflicts was fought indirectly, with the United States and the Soviet Union providing support to in 1950 when North Korea invaded South Korea. The United States and its allies intervened on behalf of South Korea, while the Soviet Union and its allies supported North Korea. The war ended in a stalemate in 1953, with the two sides agreeing to a ceasefire. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a defining moment of the Cold War. In 1962, the Soviet Union installed nuclear missiles in Cuba, which is just 90 miles from the United States. The United States responded by imposing a naval blockade around Cuba. After a tense standoff, the Soviet Union agreed to remove the missiles in exchange for a promise from the United States not to invade Cuba. The Vietnam War was fought between 1955 and 1975. The United States and its allies supported South Vietnam, while the Soviet Union and its allies supported North Vietnam. The war ended in a victory for North Vietnam, with the country being reunified under communist rule. The end of the Cold War came about as a result of a number of factors, including the declining economic power of the Soviet Union, the reforms implemented by Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, and the increasing influence of Western culture and ideas in Eastern Europe. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 is often seen as the symbolic end of the Cold War, and the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 marked the official end of the conflict. In conclusion, the Cold War was a unique kind of conflict that was fought primarily through indirect means. It was marked by intense political, economic, and military competition, as well as an arms race between the two superpowers. The conflict had far-reaching consequences, shaping the international order for decades and defining much of the history of the second half of the 20th century.